Dempsey love. That's what I'm saying. Help me back in the ring.
Shove you in.
I get knocked down. If you can just help me back in, before the 10 count.
Sure, we'll push you around.
Back into the ring, back. Not around. So.
White balance.
Ah.
Whoa, Channel 4 spares no expense.
I know, this is a very technical exercise, isn't it?
Nice product.
Waving the red, waving white flag.
White flag. All right, welcome. Welcome to our availability. Other than my observation of that print, I don't have anything else to add.
So what'd you caucus on today?
We spoke about the governor's plan of Healthy Utah and Medicaid expansion as a general policy, and the information that we're able to glean from HHS through the conference calls and some of the different different negotiations that have occurred with the administration's health department, and trying to get a better sense of where our Republican House would be on a way forward.
Any decisions made? Or any vote taken?
There was not a caucus position of 38 or more on any way forward. However, that meeting and the candor, the information shared, the questions that were asked, I think help inform this leadership team mightily. And I think it was a very valuable exercise. One of the things, and I spoke about this in the meeting, we've got some big issues here beyond the Healthy Utah plan or Medicaid expansion or considering this coverage gap. This is a big issue. It's not annual, it's generational, and we feel that responsibility. But as we are at the halfway mark, we have got some very important issues that we are going to need to start drilling down into. And we needed, with a historically large Republican caucus, we needed greater certainty about where our colleagues were. I think we've arrived at a much greater appreciation for where the Republican House members are. And I think that what you're going to see that information will inform our process or deliberations with the governor and the Senate. But now we've got other big issues that we've got to start confronting. And I think this was a good exercise, and now allows us to start tackling transportation, public education. We've just got some big things to start moving on.
So you don't have a
Where are
caucus
the House
position,
members?
but yeah, where are they?
They're curious, they're inquisitive, they're,
You
No,
knew
and I'm not-
that going in. You said you had a sense
yeah,
coming in.
well,
You have
as I said, Rod, we don't have 38 or more on a single approach. We just don't. But I think we have a good idea of where people are in their approach, and from that, it gives our leadership team more information to work on. So there's no announced position that the House Republican caucus is taking.
What
You've
was the
got-
most popular among the options in caucus? You didn't have a majority on anything, but what got the most support? Was it Healthy Utah? Was it Utah Cares? Was it
You know what?
none of the above?
It was a closed caucus, and I think that one of the things that we need to do is have some frank conversation. And I'm not prepared to share where the caucus is or isn't. Oh, I've told you there was not a caucus position. That is absolutely the case. But beyond that, I'm not prepared to.
Do you think that you're not going to do anything on Medicaid expansion?
I think that there could be more effort in terms of what we do. I don't even think you can't. I don't think there is a do nothing. I think there is a we understand this issue, and I think that there is a way forward by way of approach and strategy. Not just bury our heads in the sand and pretend this issue isn't in front of us. I think that's something. I mean, I don't know how, Bob, to nuance that, but we're not burying our head in the sand on this issue. There is a strategy and a way forward. We didn't land on a caucus position on what that would be, but I think, again, our leadership team better understands a very, very large, historically large Republican caucus, and it will help us move forward in our deliberations. And I think also it'll give some space for us to start talking about some other issues.
What's the way forward? I mean, it sounds as if you may have some sort of process or some sort of negotiations
Well,
or
if it were
something
the
in
world
mind.
according to Greg, I could tell you what that is, but the issue is you have other variables. You have an executive branch and you have a Senate. And so I couldn't tell you what the way forward is. I just think I understand that this leadership team is from the House, and the House had to have a good understanding of where we were. It'll help in those discussions with the Senate and the governor, but I can't predict where that will 100% go.
Representative Dunnigan, are you making any progress with the Lieutenant Governor in your talks?
I want to say one thing. I had one of our staffers that was in our caucus meeting, and they've been here a long time, and they're well versed in the topic that we discussed today. And they came up to me after and said, that is one of the best set of presentations, debates, and discussions that they have ever seen in the legislature. And so I give a lot of credit to my colleagues. Our colleagues are prepared. They have been educated on the issue. We spent 2 caucus meetings now entirely addressing Medicaid expansion. And I was impressed with the depth and the breadth of knowledge and expertise that we have in our caucus. And I think it's very helpful, as the speaker has said, that now we've been able to get some sense of where our caucus is, and that will assist us as we continue to work with the Senate and the executive branch.
How do we describe, though, where your caucus is in terms of how leadership sees that going forward? What's the position leadership is going to represent as you talk to the Senate, as you talk to the governor? I mean, people want to know where you're at. And I understand that you don't have an official position, but as leadership, you say you've got enough to go forward. What do you have?
And I'm trying to keep with the spirit of a closed caucus and talk to a media that wants to have probably better answers. I'll just say this. The House of Representatives is not walking away from this discussion. There is a Senate to negotiate with and a government, and that is going to move forward. But it's very difficult with a large caucus for us to do that without having a better understanding of where our colleagues are. The idea that we've not hit 38 or more on a specific approach has got to be enough to inform where we are. But there's still those negotiations that have to happen.
Will there be, maybe Representative Dunnigan or you could answer, will there be alternatives? Is there an alternative visible other than Healthy Utah and Utah Cares? And I guess do nothing isn't an alternative, you said.
Okay, so we talked about 3 options today. One is not now, and that's wait and see. Let's gather more information. We have the Supreme Court case. There's many factors of uncertainty, so that we had a robust discussion on not now. We also had an excellent discussion, I thought, on Utah Cares, which could be a viable option to cover those that need the most help. And we also had a good discussion on Healthy Utah. So those were the 3 that were under discussion today.
I was just gonna say, we just left that meeting. We haven't had a chance to gather as a leadership team to discuss what that is. I appreciate you wanting to know what that means. And we need some time to sit back and regurgitate and then let the speaker be able to formulate where we go from here. But I think it's, we just left that to come here. And so I think we want to sit back and assess and discuss amongst ourselves some of the things that we talked about. And some of the feelings of our colleagues, as Representative Dunnigan said, we have some bright individuals that we serve with in that room. And so.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like you need to continue discussing this as a caucus or have continue working toward a caucus position? Maybe you bring back more information as you continue negotiations with the feds so people have a better idea what options might be available? Or do you feel like you're done with this as a caucus? And it's time to move on?
I agree with the speaker. I don't think we're done with it. We have the executive branch and the Senate, and they both have their own thoughts and their paths forward. So we need to work with them. For us, with a 63-person caucus, and for me personally, the meeting today was very helpful, very informative, and I thought hopefully educational for all of us.
Were any of you surprised that you couldn't get the caucus to coalesce behind a single option at this point?
No, we had 3 options, And there's, so this was the first time that we had our caucus to sit, interact and say, you know, as far as what would you like to see accomplished?
But you've been talking about dealing with Medicaid expansion for a couple of years now,
We have.
and you still can't get
This was
to
a
a
logical
position.
step, and I think an important step in determination of what we should do.
I would say this is a generational decision. This decision transcends me in my seat. Whatever that decision is going to be, whoever represents my area or any of our areas, 20 years from now is going to live with this decision in some form or other. And it doesn't shock me at all that we didn't walk out of there with a caucus position per se.
Do you expect to get a caucus position at some point? Or is this now up to leadership to take what you heard today and craft some kind of a,
So as Representative Gibson said, we need some time to visit and work on this as a leadership team. This is just fresh out of the oven, and we gotta see what it looks like and evaluate.
see, if you just let us in there, we would know, we could just record it. It'd
Even,
be so much
even in
easier.
theory, can you see a fourth office? Can you see something between Utah Cares and Healthy Utah that that might present another path? Is that there even?
So these are not, at least from my perspective, they're not hard lines in the sand. I mean, well, to the extent that not now, that perhaps is fairly definitive. Between Utah Cares and Healthy Utah, there's quite a bit of real estate. And I think that we can continue to have discussion. I don't think we can say that this box that we put around any of the options is perfect and there's no room for improvement or modification. I think there's flexibility.
Okay, good, but you got, say, 10,000 for Utah Cares and 146,000 for Healthy Utah. Do I hear 90? Are we looking at 65? And what?
I want to back up, if you allow me to. The 146,000 number, 1/3 of those people are already eligible for subsidized coverage today.
Yeah.
So there's not that disparity. We already have 140,000 Utahns as of this week that are getting subsidized coverage to the health exchange, healthcare.gov, 140,000 Utahns. So even though we haven't expanded Medicaid, 140,000 Utahns since last year, now 140. And the good news is the federal government's paying 100% of the subsidy for those 140,000 Utahns.
If not now, then when?
You know, as I said, we'll keep working on it.
Okay, but, so that gives you what, 90,000 uninsured? Can you get to 60? I mean, can you see a path other than, or what might a path look like?
Let me just say too, that part of this discussion, people want to go to the dollar amount or to the number of people, okay? But then when you drill down into this issue and you're on a conference call with HHS and you say, look, we know as state lawmakers, we got to pay the bills and we got to be able to keep the promises we make. Is there a way to cap so that I know the amount of people or I know the amount of money, but I got to know something? Would you accept a cap on one of these concepts? If the answer comes back no, okay, what does that leave us with? Is there a better way to ask the question? Is it mean give up? I mean, it really isn't down to a dollar amount or a number of people covered. It's trying to make sure that whatever you say you're going to do, you got to be able to do it. And if you look at some of the expansion, I mean, and I think I can share this. If you look at what we do under the traditional Medicaid funding program we have in the state right now, there's a lot of criticism that the state of Utah is not funding Medicaid. It's 30% under the traditional Medicaid the way we should be. We have the waiting list. We have $8 an hour care providers that hasn't adjusted with inflation. You have the dollar amounts that are coming into Health and Human Services of which we are not arriving and adequately funding. And so when you talk about adding more or doing more, when you look at some of the things that we're trying as a state to get right now, it's so much more complex than that. I just think that I don't want to this debate to ever just fall down into this is the number of people you either care or don't care for, or this is the amount of filthy lucre you either want to share or don't want to share. It's really not that way.
It does sound as if you're not getting much help from Washington on this.
Oh, well, I'll speak for myself on that. You know, this is a creation of a bill that passed with a partisan bill that passed with only Democrat votes. It went through a Supreme Court decision that created this funding gap of 0 to 100%. Do you know how many times we've said, okay, if you have a bill that you thought was going to provide all this health care, and you had a Supreme Court ruling that said that states don't have to participate, and in fact, you've got a coverage gap. Can the state at least say, hey, we'd like to cover that coverage gap? Can we look at that? They're saying no. They're saying, no, you have to take that coverage gap and extend it to 138%. Well, that is a condition being put on that's above and beyond the area that the ACA currently doesn't cover. And you say, and so there's a lot of answers that come back from the federal government that drive how we're trying to grapple with this. It is not an issue like any other bill that we decide we're going to draft a bill and we're going to find a way to fund a state program. Well, we are architects of that, and we can help drive the stream of dollars and who qualifies or whatever we'd like to do. This one, we are constantly going back and trying to find ways to gain certainty in this process. And it has not been overly successful. It hasn't. And I think even the governor would share that with you, the things that he is absolutely passionate about. He has not enjoyed the kind of success that he would have liked to in terms of getting that kind of flexibility.
Back to the not now option. Do you foresee down the road other options becoming available? Would that be the reason not to do it?
Actually, I think that's an important question, because not now does not mean never. We learn stuff at least weekly, almost daily on this issue. I was thinking back where we were last year and all that we've learned since then, and things have changed. States have got more flexibility in the last year. And one of the nice things about Obamacare, maybe the only thing, but one of the nice things is there's no deadline on Medicaid expansion. That 90% federal match is always available to us. There's no deadline. We can figure it out, work our way there, and then if we get to that point in time where we say that's a good fit, it's available to us.
What about the governor's plan for paying for Healthy Utah? Apparently there are new specifics out. He's been talking for a while about some kind of hospital, I think assessment's the preferred word rather than tax, as well as the cigarette tax. And he says he can come up with $78 million a year to cover the costs. How did that play? Is that convincing at all to your members?
So we had let me address that. So we had this discussion on that, and at least partially the concept is you have the hospitals pay an additional $25 million in an assessment or tax on them. You tax e-cigarettes to the tune of $32 million. You implement a PDL, a preferred drug list in existing Medicaid, which provides a few million dollars. And then you double the licensing fees for physicians. And so they all have skin in the game. I want to be very clear. Those are not my proposals, and they're not the speakers. They're not the leadership's proposals. They have been proposed by others as a way to fund Healthy Utah. The last couple of days, as I've met with the hospital systems, at least the majority of them have not committed to the $25 million, but they may be willing to participate if others have skin in the game. So those issues I threw out, the physicians are not very excited about having their licensing fees doubled, and I think that's virtually off the table. The e-cigarette tax, I don't know how we generate $32 million. That's a lot of money for e-cigarettes. The PDL bill that was failed, it failed in the Senate, so those cornerstones of funding are not there, and that's assuming that if we pass the e-cigarette tax, it would generate that much money, and that we would then use it for Healthy Utah or for Medicaid expansion.
So not very convincing. That's not.
Well, let me just say this. It's not black and white. It's not, I mean, when you look at the funding sources that have been promoted and you drill down and you go find the people that there's an assumed fee or a registration, you're not hearing back, oh yeah, that's what we'll do. So someone can say this is where you're going to get all those dollars, but it's a very complex funding formula, and you're not even hearing back from those sources or from people that are approximate to it that they even agree that that's the case. And so though that's not even a concrete way forward in terms of how you would find some of that funding.
Okay, two more questions.
Can I
On
ask
the
you about
issue-
partisan school board races really quickly? It passed the Senate yesterday. Do you guys have a
Thank you.
position on
I
that?
love your question.
Sorry,
Where have you
guys.
been my whole life? There's been a bill? I'm just happy for the topic, change of topic. There are a number of school boards, since a judge has ruled that the way we have in statute right now is not constitutional, there is no status quo to fall back on how we elect our state school board members. So we can't just, if we don't like a plan, do nothing because there is no status quo on this. So the issue of a partisan state school board, the issue of a nonpartisan, and the issue of changing the Constitution to allow the governor to select school board members like he does higher ed, state institutions of higher learning's Board of Regents, are all on the table. And they're all going through this process right now, and I think they're all viable ideas. So I think that's what you're seeing. But the takeaway is you have to land on something, because we don't have a process in place right now. And even if you went to the constitutional amendment route, you would still need an interim process, because in the year that voters would decide whether to change the Constitution, there will be school board races on that same day.
So did that bill pass the Senate this
The
morning?
bill passed the Senate yesterday afternoon.
The Senate floor?
Yeah, the Senate floor. And it was for partisan. For statewide and the 4 largest school districts in the state. Do you have a position on that?
Personally, I don't have a position on that yet. I think that there will be discussions, and we'll get to a position, or I will have one that I'll share, but right now I don't have a position.
Well, this has been talked about for years and years.
I know,
And
I'm not oblivious to the issue. I do know it. I just, I haven't landed yet.
Senate leadership said that negotiations have begun today on the non-discrimination religious liberties bill. Representative D is apparently involved in those negotiations. Representative Christensen is apparently not. Your thoughts on any negotiations going on?
Yeah, I would be careful. I think that we have a lot of stakeholders and a lot of colleagues who have sponsored bills, who are sponsoring bills, and to say that some are involved and some are not, I don't think is accurate. I've been involved trying to come to some good consensus, and I can tell you that all of the bill sponsors that I'm aware of are involved in the collaborative discussion happening right now. So I would not characterize it, Ben, that anyone is not involved in this. I think there are policy discussions happening broadly.
Gas
Okay,
tax.
thank